So here we are in January, and there's two things that often happen in January. Number one, people start talking about the future. What will this year hold? Where are we going to go? It's a good time to take stock and all that. Secondly, it's convention time, and conventions start happening, including NRF, the National Retail Federation's big show. We're going to combine the two, talk about what took place at the NRF Show and what it means for the future of retail. Joining us today for our conversation is Tim Tang. He is Director of Business Technologies at Hughes, and Hughes has had a presence at the NRF Show, but Tim was really everywhere looking for what is going to happen with the future of retail. So thanks for joining us today, Tim.
Jeff, thanks for having me. I look forward to this.
So I mentioned that one of your primary responsibilities is to really look at what is the future of retail and how do we get there? Not just some sort of science fiction type thing, but how do you connect to today to tomorrow? Because retail is always changing. So how do you look at ideas and determine which ideas are most likely to get traction? What is some insight into how you get insights?
I tell you, I've been at this for many decades now, and I would say that probably the first and the foremost is a question of pain. It is very difficult for organizations and for people to change. And so I spent a lot of time trying to understand where are the real pain points. The changes in industry will generally take place when the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of making the change. And so I'm really interested in trying to understand where is the industry really hurting? Where is what problems are they struggling with? So for example, in the convenience store industry specifically, you look at the long tail demand destruction that's taking place currently with fuel and with tobacco sales, and saying, okay, this is a meaningful challenge facing the industry. How are they going to try to solve it? And then I look for solutions and technologies that are going to be key to solving those challenges.
You talk about pain, which I think is a great way of looking at it, because what pain does it show throughout the organization trying to affect change, and then what pain is involved at the consumer end. The other way of saying this, people talk about frictionless, but I think pain provides a more immediate context because you have to look at all these things. Where does it start in looking at an organization? Is it IT, marketing, HR? What are some of the components that you typically look at, and where is the pain in moving things forward?
It's a great point, because when it comes to pain, sometimes the most painful things that are taking place in the industry are not immediately felt. And so even though they are the most significant things that are happening and, requiring a lot of attention, it's kind of like our own personal health in many cases. Like, so many of us know we need to exercise more, we know we need to eat more healthy, but we don't. And we don't do it until we actually have some kind of instigating event that shocks us and then forces us to reconsider what we're doing. But when I think about in business and in the enterprise space, there are a lot of things that are happening that are escalating. So it's pain that's been going on for a while, but it's starting to escalate. It's starting to manifest itself. And I think it's the felt pain. So one is understanding where the pain is in the industry, but then other is also being cognizant of how much of this pain is actually being felt, how much of this is actually going to motivate new behaviors and new activities within the industry.
And I was at a meeting a couple days ago, and it was talking about issues related with community work. And one of the things is they talked about how they're going to roll out a program, and everything seemed fine. And then it got to IT. And then it's like, that slowed us down 6 months because we didn't tell them something was coming. They had their plate full. So I imagine a big part of that is the technology infrastructure that moves things along and basically selling the case that this can be done.
I think one of these, so I've been at this for 30 years now, and I would tell you that it's really interesting to me in the past few years, particularly since COVID, but in the past few years, how the enterprise attitude toward IT has completely transitioned from primarily an internal cost center to an external business driver of sales. And so it's no longer, it is still very much the internal basis by which an organization thrives and functions. But now it's also becoming, in addition to its previous roles as in supporting from an internal support, it has become a meaningful driver of external revenues. It has become a strategic part of the business, so much so that there's a whole new now focus in terms of how do I use technology effectively to drive revenue and to drive the profitability.
And I guess let's unwrap the NRF show now, because that's probably a pretty good segue into it. We had a couple folks from NACS go there. I know a couple folks from Connexus went there. You obviously are a regular participant there. Now, the NRF show is similar to the NACS show and very different than the NACS show. The similarities are it's roughly the same size in terms of expo. It's roughly the same size in terms of people, maybe a couple thousand more than the NACS show, which gets 25, 26,000 people. But the big difference is when you go to the NACS show, there's a lot of products that you'd see in stores, all the great goodies that you're able to bring back. NRF show, from what I understand, is highly, highly focused on technology. And so take us through what do you see when you walk the show floor? Broadly, what are the cues that you get? You're not going back with a giant bag of goodies. You're going back with ideas and information instead.
I would tell you and share with you that I think I've been over to, I was thinking about it because I got asked this so many times, probably over 20 NRFs in the course of my career. And it's just an overwhelming experience, no matter how you cut it. Very similar to the NACS show too as well. When I look at a show like NRF and the NACS show for that matter, there are maybe three primary sources of insight that I am looking for. There is the expo floor itself. It's outstanding in terms of just the variety of experiences and the variety. It's an excellent opportunity to very quickly get a sense of where is the market and the pulse by simply just going from one booth to the next booth to the next booth and trying to understand what are people trying to say and what problems are they trying to fix. The second is the sessions, the education sessions. I actually take them really quite seriously. The keynotes, the individual sessions, even the expo stage floor sessions. I find those to be rich opportunities of insight too as well. And then the third bucket is the engagement with actually the executives themselves. Being able to talk to retailers one-on-one, being able to sit down with them and kind of really talk through kind of what challenges where priorities are they focused on, what challenges are they having, and what things that they're solving, what are they solving for. I always say that, every NRF is different for me every year. And I walk in with an understanding I'm certainly not going to be able to accomplish everything that I want. This year's NRF show was particularly interesting to me because I walked in with kind of one idea, like I'm going to hit the expo floor and try to get all my information from there. And the reality of it is I walked out with a whole lot more from the people engagement. The education sessions were very helpful. If I were to characterize it, it was number one, the individual executives working with the retailers. Number two, the education centers sessions. And then number three, the expo floor was kind of the order, which is really flipped usually when I go to NRF. Too as well. And so it was outstanding just to understand kind of where the mindsets are, where the challenges are, and where the people and how people are responding and thinking about their challenges.
Now, what I probably should have said at the outset is NRF, National Retail Federation, represents retail. So it's all retail. It's convenience, it's grocery, it's drug, it's big box, it's something called category killer, which is everything else that's not defined by all those. So it's retail as a whole. And when I think of retail as a whole and the issues that they're facing and what are the big things, I think one of the things that we've seen across retail in convenience is discussions about security and cybersecurity. So what are some of the trends or what are some of the conversations that you saw related to security, whether it's security and safety, and you think about protecting a store in a physical sense and also protecting the store in the digital sense?
That's a great question, and it was a key area of focus. I think first we start with the idea of how retail is changing and how so much of that customer experience as well as the employee experience has been digitized and is so dependent on digital applications. And that's creating an enormous dependency of the business of retail on that infrastructure. And so when you think about cybersecurity and all the opportunities where a bad actor could come in and disrupt a retailer's ability to do business, an ability to serve customers, an ability to for their employees to be able to productively run and operate a store, it's an enormous exposure to as well. And so cybersecurity in the store is front and center because it's where retailers have the biggest opportunity to engage with their customers. It's the closest opportunity between inspiration of a customer's experience to the actual purchase. So when we think about ransomware, when we think about disrupting access to the dependency on mobile or the digital experiences from a digital signage, a digital menu board type experience, all of these depend on a secure infrastructure and network. When we think about the operational side from an employee productivity, there's a whole wave of new Internet of Things, IoT type devices and technologies that are coming out to try to simplify the store operational roles. And all these two are also dependent. So I see cybersecurity and retail being front and center. A lot of these new technologies are very dependent on external. Take the IoT space too as well. There's no ability to put an agent to protect an IoT device. So there's a need now. You're adding more and more network devices to the store infrastructure, and these devices can't protect themselves. And so it's introducing, in addition to the previous generations of managed firewalls, segmentation, and Wi-Fi, secure encrypted Wi-Fi. Now you need the ability to do things like a network detection response. You need the ability to basically protect devices that can't protect themselves from bad actors. And so it's a new wave, a new elevation of how we think about cybersecurity. The other place that I would actually point to is, in addition to the stores, a big part of the activity for retailers is the out-of-store or the offline stuff. And that depends on the distribution centers in the warehouse. And I've been spending a lot of time looking at those spaces too as well. Whereas the stores have been received a lot of attention from a cybersecurity defense posture perspective, what I'm finding is that a lot of distribution centers are quite exposed in a very similar fashion. So a lot of that technology, the conveyor belts, the scanners, are very old technologies that are very outdated and have very weak cybersecurity postures. And recently, with all the automation that's coming into the distribution centers, it's not just conveyor belts and scanners they need to protect. They need to protect the autonomous robots and the robotics that are actually accelerating a retailer's ability to drive online sales. And so you've got a modernization taking place in the distribution centers and the warehouses, which is exceeding the cybersecurity posture for most of the current cybersecurity posture. So you got a big cybersecurity need in the stores and an even greater gap need in the distribution centers and the warehouses too as well.
And I imagine cybersecurity, well, just going back to traditional crime. If you think about traditional crime in stores over the years, it's an incident in the store with a finite amount of something taken, cash, product, and great awareness that it took place. When you talk about things like cybersecurity, you're looking at something that you may or may not know it took place because it's not a public-facing thing necessarily, depending on your system. It also could be something that's lurking that hasn't happened yet, that is waiting to happen. And a third part, the most significant part, it can wipe you out. So there's a lot to be concerned about here. Bigger companies have people that are concerned about all this stuff. What about some of the traditional convenience stores that may be smaller in size? How do they, was there anything that you saw that can kind of pull this apart and make it a little easier for somebody to have a partner to worry about things?
I think that's a really important point to understand too, as well. As the threat of cybersecurity escalates, the larger enterprises have made the investments. They see the challenge and the problems of ransomware, and they are taking proactive action to protect themselves and defend themselves. And what that means is that you're seeing a hardening from a cybersecurity posture at the larger enterprise levels. Bad actors are very productive. They're very efficient. They're looking at level of reward versus level of effort. And so instead of trying to attack the larger enterprises and these hardened defenses, they're going downstream. So that SMB, that medium part of the market now has become the main central focus. In many cases, they're dealing with enterprises that have either a very weak posture or even no posture at all in some cases. The encouragement here is to first just realize the problem. Many SMBs, unfortunately, have this misunderstanding that they think they're too small to be attacked, and don't realize that with the level of automation, when you think about phishing attacks, it's just very easily to distribute, thousands of tags. I mean, think about just the mass emailing of a phishing attack. It's just very easy. The world of cybersecurity bad actors has become very automated. So attacking a large population of medium-sized industries is easier than trying to crack open a single kind of multi-million dollar pullout from a large enterprise in many cases. And so the encouragement for the small medium enterprises is that realize, one, that the problem is that they are the central focus now for the bad actors. Understand the magnitude of the threats. A typical breach can run in the $9.5 million, I think, globally for last year. For the bad actors, even a $40,000 ransomware attack would be devastating for a lot of these small businesses. And in light of those threats, then, understanding kind of their exposure, and then understanding, as you rightly described, the need for engaging with those who do have the expertise and collaborating with them. If you can't build your internal capabilities, which most medium SMBs cannot, then buy it. Get the services from somebody else who has the ability to provide that level of protection at scale. Seek out managed cybersecurity service providers who can not only provision the appropriate infrastructure, help you design, provision the appropriate infrastructure and architecture, but most importantly, maintain it and respond to threats when they occur. It's not enough just to put a device to protect yourself. The next question is what do you do when something bad goes wrong?
Yeah, and for anybody out there with one store saying I'm too small, I have one store less than you, and I get these things all the time. Anybody out there, I'm sure you've gotten the same things. You get a text that says, there's a problem with your Amazon delivery, click here. And so many people get Amazon deliveries, you think, okay, well, I'm getting one today. Well, I got one of those today, and I had to think, did I actually order something from Amazon today? Now, you certainly don't want to click on those, and you certainly, but when you talk about scale, if you can send out a massive number of these things, quantity, it doesn't really matter how much you're getting if you have a really, really wide net. So it is definitely something that will accelerate. And you gave us some good advice on how we can navigate what is going to be an increasingly growing concern when everything is digital.
I would also just add that, one of the things that SMB should understand is cybersecurity bad actors have their own SMB franchise-like business. And so in what you see in many cases is it's SMBs, bad actor SMBs attacking legitimate retail SMBs too as well. This whole infrastructure, I mean, this is an enormous business, and it's very much like retail with large enterprises and SMBs. You've got a multi-layer kind of architecture and infrastructure from a bad actor perspective there to extract trillions of dollars of damage.
And they ain't going away. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the more positive things that are going on and trends related to what you saw at NRF or saw and heard at NRF, and basically what you see coming in our industry now. Obviously, cybersecurity, huge issue. You got to pay attention to it. But AI, and now a lot of people are like, please don't talk about AI some more. It is not for me. I like the human touch, But I've heard so many different discussions about how AI. One of the best discussions I heard is if AI is kind of like an intern. It can be helpful, but it takes some work to make it helpful. It's not like you just put somebody at a desk and say, "Get to work. You know what you're doing." That's just one comment I heard, but you obviously have been tracking this for a while. What are you seeing that's going on with AI? Because it's accelerating so fast.
If I were to characterize the previous years, I think what I saw this year at NRF is kind of a slight a very meaningful transition. When you think about the impact of ChatGPT and kind of these generative AI type solutions and the like, a lot of it has made its mark initially, anyways, in the first couple of years in the marketing side of the business. What's really kind of interesting in this year's NRF is the use of AI in the store operation side of the business. Using AI to understand kind of what's happening in the store, interpreting what's going on in the store, and then help augmenting the frontline role in the store. So what I mean by that is that retail is faced continuously with this meaningful challenge of labor shortage, rising minimum wage, not only on the frontline level, but even at the store manager level too as well. So it's hard to get the frontline workers. It's even harder to get store managers. And so what I see very interesting to me about this year's NRF is the use of AI as it relates specifically to kind of computer vision capabilities as well as voice analytics, so video analytics and voice analytics to help augment the management of the store from a store manager perspective, as well as that frontline manager too. So the idea is using voice analytics and video analytics to understand the problems in the store and then to operationalize them into a very specific task to simplify and even gamify that frontline role and that frontline and that store manager role too as well.
And that's more like taking some of the tasks that nobody really likes doing, counting products or something like that, reconciling and having AI do that for you so you're more effective. You're better able to have people interact with people as opposed to people having to do tasks.
This is like we're moving from, what's been a norm in computer vision is not new to retail. It's been used rather routinely to, for example, correlate with point of sale transactions. When you see questionable transactions, being able to pull the video associated with those transactions and identify the fraud that's going on, that's been a norm for a decade or so. I think what's really interesting now is using computer vision to translate what's happening in the store. I counted 50 people going into the bathroom. I'm going to generate a task for my that says to my front line saying somebody needs to clean the bathroom. Mm-hmm. It's being able to operationalize. I see a shelf that's run out of stock. I generate a task of saying this item needs to be replenished. It's basically having another set of eyes on a routine system level basis across your whole store, across all your stores in your brand, and being able to kind of manage all the activity in there in a more efficient and effective way.
So we talked about security, which is something that is or should be on everybody's mind at retail. AI, which is whether or not you like it, it should be on your mind as well. Was there a third or another thing that you saw or have been seeing lately that is emerging that could join cybersecurity and AI at whether it's next year's NRF show as an equal or down the road? What is that thing that's gaining traction that people may not be aware of?
I think the third thing I would add to this mix is the retail media networks and that phenomenon that's taking place. In part because, as we alluded to, where is the pain? Well, for so many retailers, the pain is found in the profitability of retail itself. And the retail media networks represent a whole new revenue stream, extremely profitable revenue stream that can augment and leverage the retailer's relationship with their customers. I think this is really fascinating to see how a lot of the larger, particularly in the grocery side of the industry, in terms of how they are collaborating with their CPGs, it's a kind of meaningful kind of augmentation of that in-store experience. And so I'm paying a lot of attention to the emergence of these retail media networks. There's still a lot that needs to be navigated in terms of the internal technologies, the organizations, and the like. But the opportunity, when you go back to the idea of pain, the big challenge right now for CPG brands is that there is no mass channel anymore. TV, even streaming media right now has all been dramatically fragmented. So it's looking for alternative, and that in-store experience now becomes a very attractive opportunity for the brands to engage with their consumers.
And that can be at the pump, that can be with digital coupons, that could be via the app.
Yes.
And I assume that there's really no limit there. You don't have to say, well, I can't do a retail media network. I only have 10 stores. There's an opportunity there, but it might be not your own TV station, if you will, but it's just a different level of what you can do.
There's a really interesting cross-functional or cross-industry competition that's emerging now, right? Convenience stores are now competing with QSRs, who are competing with grocery. And so we need to be paying attention to how each of these different industries are resetting that customer expectation of what an ideal in-store experience looks like, and being able to accommodate or exceed their expectations of what the customer wants.
So will it be like that Tom Cruise movie, Minority Report?
No, they won't. They won't be that blatant of it. It'll be far more subtle. It'll be the idea that where brands will be understanding kind of your purchase behaviors and just kind of giving to you what you need or what you want without you really fully understanding why is it that they know what you need and what you want.
So it's that fine line between cool and creepy, I think, that people talk about. And you want to be much farther towards the cool in the customer's eyes than the creepy. And that's the dance.
Cool, creepy, I would say convenience too as well.
You might have a job in communications and convenience with those kind of lines. So want to wrap up. You know, we talked about cybersecurity. We talked about AI. We talked about retail media networks. Where, in thinking about how fast things are changing, with 0 being super positive and 10 being, boy, there's a lot to worry about, where would you tell most retailers to think about? You know, opportunity or threat, or is it's always in the middle?
It's certainly not in the middle, but it's at both extremes. There's immense opportunity and there's an immense threat. So there is no kind of one answer. I think my guidance or my encouragement for the convenience store industry specifically is that I've gained a healthy respect for how successful convenience store operators are in not using new technologies and in running the business the way they have for the past many decades. But my strong encouragement to the operators is that in light of this long-tail demand decline in fuel, tobacco sales, and then in light of all this cross competition, profitability in convenience stores is now found in hot prepared foods. That puts the convenience store industry in a direct conflict with the restaurant industry and the grocery industry. And these are very big players in technology, and understanding who the new competition is going to be vitally important for the future of this industry.
I couldn't have written a better ending than that, so I will not try to top that. If you want to find him and talk, he's in our industry with Hughes. You'll see him at a lot of NACS events, Connexus events. The other thing is go to his LinkedIn page, and I've been to a lot of LinkedIn pages. I've never gone to a LinkedIn page where somebody has 2 truths and a lie embedded in their LinkedIn page. So I don't want to go through what the 2 truths and a lie are. I want people, they have to go to your LinkedIn page, but how do they figure out which one's the lie? Do they have to send you a note?
Sure. I'd be more than happy to tell them and talk to them about it.
And there's some good ones there, and I'll talk to you offline what I think the lie was. But connect with Tim on LinkedIn or wherever you think you want to find him. And Tim, thanks for joining us today.
Jeff, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of digest and process all the thinking that's been going on from the NRF.
We appreciate it, and thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.